Hello?
Hi, is this Wes Perry?
Yep, it's Wes.
Did you flush some socks down the toilet?
Flushed a what?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, I didn't flush socks down the toilet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No! Yes, of course I know it.
Do you have a child?
Oh.
Do you think he did it?
Yeah, he might have.
Okay. Well, what do you want us to do?
Just get it out. It's fine.
Okay.
It's great.
Right away.
Oh hey! It's Wes! And today, we're going to be talking about the iPhone 11 and the iPhone 11 Pro, specifically the video quality. Now I was originally going to be doing one large video comparing the image and video quality to the previous iPhone XS, and just in general, but to be perfectly honest, editing 2 streams of 4K 60p video, it filled up my whole hard drive. So we're going to be breaking this up. Stick around, subscribe. Next time, we're going to be looking at the image quality specifically of the iPhone 11 Pro. So what exactly are we looking for here? Well, we need to narrow things down, keep things tight. We're going to be looking at everyday usage. So sometimes you don't want to bring around your huge professional camera rig with you. You just want to do something easy. You want to get it right. Take it out of your pocket, boom, take a picture, take a video. That's what we're looking at right now. We're looking at the built-in camera app, no frills, no gimmicks, no stabilizers, no gimbals. So what I did was, I took this guy right here, I put 2 phones in it, the iPhone 11 Pro and the iPhone XS. It's my wife's, so I don't have it with me right now, but I had it that day. And we're going to compare how it works out and how these cameras do. This is supposed to be the latest, this is supposed to be Pro. But is it? Before I get too far into this, I know you'll be saying, what about the Pixel 3? What about the Pixel 4? What about the Galaxy Note 10? This is the first time I've done a video of this kind. If it does poorly, I won't be looking at those. If it does well, then sure, I'll revisit this. It will be doing some comparisons of the other flagship camera systems. We're going to be recording this in 60p. If you don't know what that is, it's more frames per second. Things are smoother. I think it's more personable. It's also better for evaluating video quality. Things are clearer, crisper, and you can see. Speaking of which, if you can view this video in 4K, it will be much better. You'll be able to see what's going on much more easily. Now I'll be giving ratings for the iPhone 11 Pro specifically. Most of these ratings apply to the iPhone 11 as well because the camera modules are very, very similar, if not the same in many respects. If you want to see my ratings for the XS that is also in this video, you can check that down in the description. First of all, we're going to look at the selfie camera quality, and to do that, we're going to take a little walk. So in these shots, I'm looking for a higher dynamic range, some sort of an improvement. And to be honest, with the selfie camera, it's not doing that well. Highlights are just blown right out, and there's not much of a transition between in and out. There's hardly anything going on for stabilization here as well. One of the biggest differences between the selfie cameras in the XS and the 11/11 Pro is you're getting 4K. And additionally, you'll be getting Selfies. But not in this video! And we have a special guest today for video.
Hello.
Want to tell them about yourself?
For sure, my name's Catherine. I am a former professional dancer. I still do it from time to time. But the reason why I'm here today is to really help discover how the camera is compared to the older one with movement. So I'm gonna be moving a lot for you guys today.
Selfie camera quality, it's fine, it's not amazing. There is an improvement, but it's not a big one, just a little wider, a tiny bit better all around. Overall though, it's not mind-blowing, it's a 7 out of 10. Moving up, color quality. Let's see some blues, some skin tones, let's roll it all together. I was expecting a greater difference now that we're using the backside cameras here. So you've got her in the shadows, you've got the sky fully lit. The iPhone 11 is capable of high dynamic range capture at 4K 60, and the XS is not. So I was expecting to see a lot more information in these iPhone 11 files. Honestly, not a huge difference, other than in the XS, you're seeing a bit of a magenta shift. It's kind of a warmer, redder file, whereas in the 11, a little bit greener, a little bit cooler. Which one's more accurate? Honestly, it's hard to say. Thinking back to that day, they're both pretty close. And we'll see this in the future files as well. The XS tends to give a more pleasing rendition, even if it's not necessarily more accurate. But overall, I'm kind of calling this one a draw. Neither is perfect, but they're both pretty great for color reproduction. It's a 9 out of 10. Slow-mo. I love slow-mo. With the increased bandwidth going to the sensor in the iPhone 11, I was thinking we'd see a pretty big advantage in the slow-mo. When shooting 4K 60, it actually shoots 120 frames per second and combines every 2 frames in different exposures to give you a higher dynamic range. The iPhone XS is only capable of doing this at 1080p. So I was thinking, you've got a lot of pipeline here, slow-mo should be greatly improved. It's not, it's almost identical. You still have 1080, 240, approximately the same bit rate. So it would be great if they could totally unlock that 4K mode and give us 4K 120 slow-mo, or even just up the bit rate of 1080, 240, or maybe bring it up to 360. So overall, a little bit disappointed with the slow-mo. It's still good, but it is clearly capable of doing way better. It's a 6 out of 10. There's really no excuse for the lack of improvements there. Next up, dynamic range. As I said before, this thing's doing dual exposures at 60p, and so I thought there'd be a huge difference. Yes, there is a difference between the XS and the 11. You have slightly better highlights, slightly smoother roll-off, and down in the shadows, you have a little bit of detail, while in this high dynamic range video, the XS doesn't really have much shadow detail or highlight detail. But overall, the difference isn't enormous. There are some circumstances where the 11 can just nail that difference and you can see a huge difference. But on that particular day, I wasn't really able to reproduce that, although I have seen it and I know it's possible. It does have a wider dynamic range. But let's face it, it's a teeny tiny sensor. You've got to do some crazy stuff. And in pictures, it can stack a whole bunch of images together and give just mind-blowing dynamic range. And we'll see that in the next video. But so far, in just video, there's only so much that it has done that it can do. Still though, as a smartphone, the dynamic range is phenomenal, so it is a 9 out of 10. Image clarity. When the camera isn't moving around a lot, and this is pretty typical of most cameras with a lower bitrate video, it looks very sharp, very crisp, very clear, but then as soon as you start moving things around a bit, things start to blur a little, fine details in the background and the foreground start to mush up a little, but then as soon as it stops moving, things snap right back into very, very sharp focus. The default camera app at 4K 60 is using a bitrate of 60 megabits per second. If you use a third-party camera app, such as Filmic Pro or Pro Movie, which is what I use, you can actually bump that bitrate all the way up to 120 megabits per second. So the camera is capable of capturing a lot more detail, a lot more information, and it sharpens it right up. But again, we're only talking about the default camera app. It gets a bit mushy from time to time. What really surprised me is how similar the lens flares are in these two phones. Now presumably they have almost identical lens design internally, even if the lenses on the new one appear to be a little bit sharper. We'll talk about that more in the image quality one in the next video. So overall, it handles lens flares very well. Maybe not as well as a $3,500 Pro lens, but it does very well for a camera phone. If we move on to low light situations and how much clarity and detail we get there, I was actually a little bit surprised. Now, this camera does have night mode. Don't expect to see that in video. That's not how this works. So you take a picture in almost the pitch dark, you get a cute cat. You take a video in almost pitch dark, you get pretty much nothing. But in reasonable low light situations, such as at a concert, I actually got more detail than I expected. As I was taking it, I was expecting to get potato in, potato out. However, there's actually a reasonable amount of detail. Even when things are moving around, it doesn't get all blocky and artifacty. I was kind of impressed. Is it way better than the XS? No, just marginally improved. Even the dynamic range in the low light video kind of surprised me. I was expecting much worse. Overall, image clarity using the native camera app, it's a 7 out of 10. It's strong, it's not perfect. If we're using a third-party app, it might be quite a bit higher than that. If you want to see a comparison to that in a later video, let me know down in the comments. Image stabilization. This is the one that really caught me by surprise. The XS, yes, it has stabilization. When you're standing still, images are stabilized. As soon as you start walking around and you're not using a gimbal, I wasn't trying to do anything special, I was just walking conversationally. Yes, that's a thing. The iPhone 11 destroys the XS for stabilization. The XS got so confused with the up and the down and the back and the forth. It was just a disaster. The iPhone 11 was just amazing for stabilization. I've never seen a phone pull off a trick like that before. It blew my mind. That's right, sometimes I can be pleased by something, sometimes I'm happy. So for image stabilization, it's an easy 10 out of 10. It's the best that I've seen. Versatility. This one's pretty easy. Finally, on the iPhone 11 Pro, we have 3 cameras, and we have a wider camera in the front. That's pretty versatile. Phone's waterproof, as you can see. It's still working fine. The only feature that's possibly lacking right now is image stabilization in the wide-angle lens. Now, do we need it? Arguably no. The wider you go, the less you need stabilization, but it's the only thing missing. But overall, it's highly versatile. It's a 9 out of 10. Speaking of versatility, I'm not here to talk about the overall hardware of this phone, because I don't want this video to be 3 hours long. But although the new A13 processor is phenomenal and has great battery life, when I had the phone open and running on the camera app for long periods of time to compare the two, it was running down the battery just as fast, if not faster, than the XS. I suspect that's because of how much it's doing the comparative imaging. When you're taking pictures, it's constantly taking pictures even before you press that shutter button to get ready for multiple exposures, multiple brightnesses to combine them in an HDR. And it's doing a lot of evaluative stuff in video as well, even when you're not shooting. And when you are shooting, it's doing a lot of heavy lifting. So in that case, this is not going to last you all day if you're shooting video, if you're doing B-roll, if you're doing professional work, as Apple seems to think. That's the one case that I've found that this isn't going to last you all day. Also, if you're playing Pokemon or Wizards Unite, also won't last you all day, even though it will give you phenomenal battery life outside of those super intensive high drain uses. Yesterday, when I got up in the morning, I actually hadn't charged my phone overnight. I didn't even think to plug it in because it was at 60% when I went to bed. I hadn't been doing a lot of high drain stuff that day, I will tell you. And so, you know what? I was just like, I'll just leave it all day. See how long it lasts? When I got to bed, I was at 1%. I got a solid 2 days out of this. Which leads me to this. In a previous video, I talked about this was my previous favorite battery bank. This is an Anker. I love Anker products. I couldn't find the Anker product that I wanted to suit the new iPhone 11 Pro. Why is that? Because we finally have USB-C quick charging included in the box. This cable comes right in the box. Hopefully this isn't still super wet. You plug this guy in, now we have a slim, pocketable battery bank that does USB-C quick charge. So this will charge your phone at the full 18 watts. So if you need a quick pick-me-up, this will do it. A lot of older battery banks don't have this. Some of them have USB-C, but they don't have quick charge. Some of them only have one port. This one is my current favorite because we have USB-C quick charge, or rather USB-C power delivery, but we also have Qualcomm Quick Charge 3.0. So you can quick charge all the things. Now, I'm still waiting for a battery bank with a whole bunch of USB-C ports on it, but as of right now, you need a gigantic one to get that sort of functionality. So, link in the description. Took me forever to find this battery bank, the one that met the needs that I was specifically looking for, because apparently I'm a little finicky. Moving right along. This isn't one that I was really planning on talking about, but it is significant when you're taking pictures. Interface. The camera app in the iPhone, it's a classic. It's been copied, it's been duplicated. It's had a lot of stuff tagged onto it. And honestly, I'm not as happy with it as I used to be. Why is that? Well, there's a lot of stuff going on in here now. And honestly, it's getting a little bit confusing how to find all the things. Apple's tried to make it lean and intuitive and easy to use, but honestly, with the amount of things that this can do now, it's just getting a little bit confusing. But add to that the fact that this is called the iPhone 11 Pro. I can't actually get to the settings inside the camera app. I have to dig around inside the settings menu, find the camera, and then when I get there, there's not a lot of settings. If I really want to take control, I have to download a third-party camera app to get those high bit rates, to get those other options, to make this do pro things. So honestly, Apple, you really need to update this camera app. I'd like to see the settings in the app. The old architecture of simplifying apps and pulling all the settings into the settings app, it's a bit dated now, and I don't really want to dig around on my phone just to really get the job done, because sometimes we need to switch those things up. So if you really need those extra options, again, you're looking at Pro Movie or Filmic Pro, they can do some phenomenal things. But either way, this minimalist interface that Apple's been using, it was great in the past, but it's really showing its age. Interface is now a 6 out of 10. So, what's that give us? That gives us a 63 out of 80. My math is strong when I have a calculator. What's that mean? Not much, since this is the first review I've given to a phone. If you want to know what the iPhone XS gets, go down to the description. I've got links there for some accessories, I've got links to other videos, and again, subscribe, stick around. We'll be talking about the image quality in a much more conventional Wes video. And we'll dive into lots more stuff. So, until next time, go take some photos.